Okay, everyone, we're going to continue reading on the top of 151 where we left off. I just want to refocus us for a second. Stuff is about to get crazy, my friends. So our focus for this page is, how does herd mentality guide the boys' actions on these pages? Okay, that's going to be our focus. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question just after this, and then I'm going to ask you questions after the reading. But I'm going to read it straight through because I just want you guys to hear and see this scene that happens. It's a lot. Okay, friends, the first thing I want you to do is to paraphrase the following line, something we talked about, this quote from Bertrand Russell. Collective fear stimulates herd instinct and tends to produce ferocity towards those who are not regarded as members of the herd. Paraphrase that. So write it in your own words. Just rewrite this line in your own words. Do that now. Okay, so we're going to begin right near the top of 151, the fourth line down. Ralph examined the ranks of boys. Just to frame your set of mind so that you can understand what's happening here. So we've been with all the boys except for one, which is Simon. So if you recall, Simon ran into the Lord of the Flies, which was the pig head on a stick. And then after that, he discovered the parachuted man that everyone thought was the beast. Once he figured out that it wasn't a beast, it was just a man who was dead, he decided that he needed to go tell the other boys. He is now going to come back to this feast and try to tell everyone that the beast is not real. We shall see what happens. Okay, starting on the top of 151. Ralph examined the ranks of boys. There was no help in them, and he looked away, confused and sweating. Piggy whispered, "The fire. Rescue." "Who will join my tribe?" "I will. Me! I will. I'll blow the conch," said Ralph breathlessly, "and call an assembly." "We shan't hear it." Piggy touched Ralph's wrist. "Come away. There's going to be trouble, and we've had our meat." There was a blink of bright light beyond the forest, and the thunder exploded again so that a little one started to whine. Big drops of rain fell among them, making individual sounds when they struck. "Going to be a storm," said Ralph, "and you'll have rain like when we dropped here. Who's clever now? Where are your shelters? What are you going to do about that?" The hunters were looking uneasily at the sky, flinching from the stroke of the drops. A wave of restlessness set the boys swaying and moving aimlessly. The flickering light became brighter, and the blows of thunder were only just bearable. The little ones began to run about, screaming. Jack leapt onto the sand. "Do our dance! Come on, dance!" He ran stumbling through the thick sand to the open space of rock beyond the fire. Between the flashes of lightning, the air was dark and terrible, and the boys followed him clamorously. Roger became the pig, grunting and charging at Jack, who sidestepped. The hunters took their spears, and cooks took spits, and the rest clubs of firewood. A circling movement developed in a chant. While Roger mimed the terror of the pig, the little ones ran and jumped on the outside of the circle. Piggy and Ralph, under the threat of the sky, found themselves eager to take a place in the demented but partly secure society. They were glad to touch the brown backs of the fence that hemmed in the terror and made it governable. "Kill the beast! Cut his throat! Spill his blood!" The movement became regular, while the chant lost its first superficial excitement and began to beat like a steady pulse. Roger ceased to be a pig and became a hunter, so that the center of the ring yawned emptily. Some of the little ones started a ring on their own, and the complementary circles went round and round as though repetition would achieve safety of itself. There was the throb and stamp of a single organism. The dark sky was shattered by a blue-white scar. An instant later, the noise was on them like the blow of gigantic whip. The chant rose a tone in agony. "Kill the beast! Cut his throat! Spill his blood!" Now, out of the terror rose another desire, thick, urgent, and blind. "Kill the beast! Cut his throat! Spill his blood!" Again, the blue-white scar jagged above them, and the sulphurous explosion beat down. The little ones screamed and blundered about, fleeing from the edge of the forest, and one of them broke the ring of Biggins in his terror. Him! Him! The circle became a horseshoe. A thing was crawling out of the forest. It came darkly, uncertainly. The shrill screaming that rose before the beast was like a pain. The beast stumbled into the horseshoe. Kill the beast! Cut his throat! Spill his blood! The blue-white scar was constant, the noise unendurable. Simon was crying out something about a dead man on a hill. Kill the beast! Cut his throat! Spill his blood! Do him in! The sticks fell, and the mouth of the new circle crunched and screamed. The beast was on its knees in the center, its arms folded over its face. It was crying out against the abominable noise, something about a body on the hill. The beast struggled forward, broke the ring, and fell over the steep edge of the rock to the sand by the water. At once the crowd surged after it, poured down the rock, leapt onto the beast, screamed, struck it, bit, tore. There were no words and no movements but the tearing of teeth and claws. Then the clouds opened and let down rain like a waterfall. The water bounded from the mountaintop, tore leaves and branches from the trees, poured like a cold shower over the struggling heap on the sand. Presently, the heap broke up and figures staggered away. Only the beast lay still, a few yards from the sea. Even in the rain, they could see how small a beast it was, and already its blood was staining the sand. Now a great wind blew the rain sideways, cascading the water from the forest trees. On the mountaintop, the parachute filled and moved. The figure slid, rose to its feet, spun, swayed down through a vastness of wet air, and trod with ungainly feet the tops of the high trees. Falling, still falling, it sank toward the beach, and the boys rushed screaming into the darkness. The parachute took the figure forward, furrowing the lagoon, and bumped it over the reef and out to sea. Toward midnight, the rain ceased and the clouds drifted away, so that the sky was scattered once more with incredible lamps of stars. Then the breeze died too, and there was no noise save the drip and trickle of water that ran out clefts and spilled down, leaf by leaf, to the brown earth of the island. The air was cool, moist, and clear, and presently even the sound of water was still. The beast lay huddled on the pale beach, and the stains spread, inch by inch. The edge of the lagoon became a streak of phosphorescence that advanced minutely as the great wave of the tide flowed. The clear water mirrored this clear sky and the angular bright constellations. The line of phosphorescence bulged about the sand grains and little pebbles. It held them each in a dimple of tension, then suddenly accepted them with an inaudible syllable and moved on. Along the shoreward edge of the shallows, the advancing clearness was full of strange, moonbeam-bodied creatures with fiery eyes. Here and there, a larger pebble clung to its own air and was covered with a coat of pearls. The tide swelled in over the rain-pitted sand and smoothed everything with a layer of silver. Now it touched the first of the stains that seeped from the broken body, and the creatures made a moving patch of light as they gathered at the edge. The water rose further and dressed Simon's coarse hair with brightness. The line of his cheek silvered, and the turn of his shoulder became sculptured marble. The strange attendant creatures, with their fiery eyes and trailing vapors, busied themselves round his head. The body lifted a fraction of an inch from the sand, and a bubble of air escaped from the mouth with a wet plop. Then it turned gently in the water. Somewhere over the darkened curve of the world, the sun and moon were pooling, and the film of water on the earth planet was held, bulging slightly on one side with the solid core turned. The great wave of the tide moved further along the island, and the water lifted, softly, surrounded by a fringe of inquisitive bright creatures, itself a silver shape beneath the steadfast constellation. Simon's dead body moved out toward the open sea. Okay, so got a couple questions for you about the things that we just read, and wow. So first question, what do the boys do on these pages and why? Use the term herd mentality in your 2 to 3 sentence long answer. So I want you to write 2 to 3 sentences telling me what just happened on these pages. Use the phrase herd mentality in your answer. Okay, so as Simon runs down to tell the boys that the beast, what they thought was the beast, was actually just a dead parachuter, they mistake him, They mistake Simon for the beast. Their fear of the beast causes them to act with herd mentality and attack Simon, killing him by stabbing him many, many times with spears. So that's going to pull me into the second. Well, it's not really a question. It's what I want you to do. So I want you to look at pages 152 and 153. Choose 2 quotes from pages 152 to 153 that demonstrate the presence of herd mentality among the boys. Explain why you chose the detail. Okay, so some possible things that you could have chosen. One I picked out, quote, Piggy and Ralph, under the threat of the sky, found themselves eager to take a place in this demented but partly secure society. So even though Piggy and Ralph didn't like Jack, they didn't like the hunters, it says they found themselves eager to take place in this demented but partly secure society. So they wanted to take place even though they didn't actually like the hunters. The second quote, some of the little ones started a ring of their own, and the complementary circles went round as though repetition would achieve safety itself. So the little ones were kind of scared to be in the circle with the big kids, so they kind of made their own little circle. They did that simply because the big kids were making their circle. They felt safer when they were doing what the big kids were doing. And then lastly, there was a throb and a stamp of a single organism. So it was of all the boys, even though it seemed like chaos and they were running around in circles and chanting, kill the beast, slit its throat, cut its whatever. They seemed to be a single organism, like one thing acting in unison. They did that because of herd mentality. Okay, everyone, so congrats on making it through that drastic scene, and it was a lot. So what I'm going to do now, the next slide after this is going to be a YouTube clip from the Lord of the Flies movie from the scene that we just read, which is Simon finding the dead parachuter and then coming down to the boys' feast and being mistaken as the beast and being murdered. You do not have to watch the video. It is violent and aggressive, and there's no questions attached to it, so you're not going to lose points if you don't watch it. It's just there if you want to watch it. So please only watch it if you want to. Yes, there is a Lord of the Flies movie. Don't ask me to show it. Okay, there's a lot of unnecessary cursing, and the book does not quite match up with the movie all that well sometimes. So I normally don't like to show it because I think it's confusing. Anyway, don't ask me. But yes, only watch the video on the next clip if you want to. But be warned, it is violent and it is aggressive, but you can handle it if you want to.